Do you like conversation on a variety of topics? Feel like no one wants to talk about the things that interest you? Tired of only hearing the same political, sports, or catastrophe talk? Yeah, we feel that way too. Join two high-functioning geeks as they discuss just about anything under the sun. We can't tell you what we'll be talking about each week because we don't know where our brains will take us. It will be an interesting conversation though, so hang on and join us. Here comes the Relentless Geekery.
So this is my logic I've been doing the last couple of years. In September to October, you watch horror movies because it's Halloween time and fall scary, blah, blah, blah. In December, you watch Christmas movies, whether it's rom-coms or whatever other Christmas movies you enjoy. That leaves November, and there's not a lot of really good Thanksgiving movies, but it's the transition from the horror to the Christmas. So I always watch Christmas horror movies in November.
Deadly Night and Krampus, and okay, that makes good sense.
Yeah. So that's Christmas horror, right? I told AI it wouldn't do Christmas horror, so it did scary Christmas.
Okay. That's interesting that it actually rejects certain suggestions, but they got to always be thinking of it's got to be safe for the kids. Because what's the first thing you do when you get an unabridged dictionary? Look up the swear words.
If you know how to look them up, you already know them. So what are you really saving?
Right. They're just looking for all the different, I'm sure that book has 37 different definitions for all the ways in which it is used.
Yeah, they just go to Google Translate and just ask it for the swear words in all the foreign languages. So
exactly. And I got, every time we bring this up, I got to give a shout out. People, if you've never read Maledicta, if you've never even heard of it, it was this guy that did scholarly work into vulgarity and swearing of the sexual and the fecal and the religious, every way that you could think of it. And it really is fascinating to look at how these things are, how they generate, how like different cultures have different words to come up for it, and how in different cultures or languages, certain things are much more taboo than others. And in the United States, the C word is really a bad word. It really is like a fighting word. And in English, it's saying you're a jerk. You know what I mean? It's much lower down on the scale. Whereas bloody, we say it because we heard it in an English movie or saw it on Monty Python, but over there, it's really crass. So yeah, I like to be able to offend people in 17 different languages.
See, I've had this idea and I should implement just because it's fun is go find old like Victorian swear words and put them on t-shirts because nobody gets offended anymore because they don't know what they mean, but you could be swearing in Victorian.
You know, what's funny is, and Kelly and I have talked about this. I've received occasionally a gift that has swear words on it, a t-shirt, and I really don't like that. When I said before about I want to be able to offend, no, it's more I want to be able to express. And offending people where you just walk up and before you even have your feel for how you're going to participate in the conversation, your shirt is already, for the blue noses, really gotten them on edge. And I just don't like that. I like it to be my choice, not I bought a shirt and now everybody has to deal with it.
And the people that do wear that and somebody gets upset, they're like, hey lady, then just don't look at it. This is freedom of speech. Okay, actually, you're misinterpreting the freedom of speech in the Constitution. That just shows you've never actually studied this and you're lower on the monkey totem pole there. But no. I agree. I don't see the point in doing something that you know is going to offend somebody and you're doing it just for that. That's,
it's the same theory as when people have tattoo and they see you looking at it. What are you looking at? Like the tattoo that you obviously got so that we would all notice it. You're not fooling anybody. And going back for a moment, but the only t-shirt I've ever had that I thought I might be willing to wear was in little tiny print. It says, nosy little fucker, aren't you? So you actually have to lean in and really peer at it to be able to see it. And then there's a joke payoff. It's not just offense. It's making fun of the fact that, I don't know, I still don't do it. I just don't like to, same shit, different day. I actually, at the turn of the millennium, I thought I could make a fortune going same shit, different millennium. And I just couldn't do it because I couldn't order shirts that say shit on them. Right. I just didn't do that.
Casey had the suggestion, why don't at all these craft shows for the last year and a half, why don't we sell like Trump and MAGA gear? We'd make a killing. I'm like, I can't support that to make money. It's not, it feels slimy.
Honestly, and we often talk about this. I'm doing well in investing again. I'm climbing back up to where I had my previous high like 4 years ago before COVID and other things contributed to the downfall. But I still, no matter what good recommendation I get, I'm not buying into a vice company. I don't want to own any cigarettes. I don't want to own any gambling. I don't want to own any determined to extend the life of fossil fuels when it's killing the planet. There's many other choices, many other ways to make money and to vote with your dollars. And I don't know, everybody has I don't go into what they often call social cause funds, where I don't have an ETF that is only those things, because I don't know that I agree with that fully either. You shouldn't have to, you of course should do business well, but I don't know. I don't know that there's a sliding scale of what is good versus bad. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in the middle that isn't either of that. It's just, hey man, we make plungers. You know what I mean? If you really find that offensive or inoffensive or whatever, there's a lot of ways to talk about this. There are so many companies out that do many things, not just one thing. So if you buy into GE but you don't want to do it because, hey, they also make, you name it, suicide pod, and you don't agree with suicide, but then you're giving up on all the good that GE does with making aerospace stuff and engines for planes that keep us all being able to fly around the world. So that kind of mixed bag thing. And having said that, I wonder how many companies actually do that. They sit there at the board meeting and go, we're really getting taken to task because we support tobacco. But hey, if we have aloe vera, I guess that makes up for it. And they make their own portfolio so that they escape the people that are after them for,
Right.
you make DDT.
It's Yamaha. They always crack me up. I can get Yamaha cymbals, Yamaha basses, and Yamaha motorcycles.
It's I remember I'm a futurist in many ways. I really think the world gets continually better, and mostly because we learn more and apply science and so forth. So why has our lifespan expanded so much in the last century? Not because of the power of prayer, because we decided that we should have fluoridated water and clean air. And then when you see that they actually become opposed, it really weirds me out to be like, wow, you must see this like I do all the time. Some just got through an 18-hour operation and teams of doctors saved his life, but they think it was their thoughts and prayers that did it. It's like, maybe at least throw a bone to the skill and the smarts, the science that went into, they were able to stitch together the tiniest little capillaries in your body. And wow, you really don't acknowledge at all that's part of the cure here.
But to even fit that argument, there's that old joke. There's a flood and this guy's stuck on his roof and a motorboat comes by and he says, no, I'm waiting for the Lord to save me. And then a helicopter comes by and says, waiting for the Lord to save me. And then a battleship comes by and they're, no, I'm waiting for the Lord to save me. He drowns, goes to heaven. He says, Lord, I thought you were going to save me. He says, well, I sent a rowboat, helicopter, and a battleship. What do you want? It's that same thing. Oh, our prayer saved him. Maybe that God was guiding the doctors. Maybe he guided them to do what he did, to learn science and learn about vaccines and all this stuff. Maybe that's what God wants from us, but no, the bush didn't burn, so we can't believe it.
I hear you. You know what I mean? That once you have that mindset that everything happens for a reason and that God is that reason, then you see everything through that lens. And I can see why that is the first thing you go to when you see a really extraordinary, especially extraordinarily good thing happen. But then the other side of that is when an extraordinarily bad thing happens, it's really weird to be like, wow, the people that just drowned in that hurricane, did God hate all of them? Or did he just not care about them? They can't all have been heathens. Whenever they talk about that there was flooding in New Orleans, that's because that's a bad city. We just had this religious college get flooded in near Asheville.
It always astounds me is whatever, no matter the situation, whatever happens, you have one group of religious people who go, it was God's will. And then you have another group of religious people saying, that's Satan at work. Hold on, it can't be both of them. And it switches depending on the day. Oh my God, I have so many things with that. Maybe God and Lucifer are working together and, hey, I'll let you have that one. You give me this one or whatever. And Lucifer was kicked out of heaven because he questioned God. Oh, you can't question my authority. Maybe hell just has bad PR. Maybe it's really an improved version of heaven because that's what Lucifer wanted. But hey, he went against God. Oh, I almost got kicked out of Sunday school for these questions, honestly.
What's funny is nowadays that's become so much a battleground, that instead of being able to have a discussion and say, so why do you believe that way? Or how has that evidenced itself in your life? And I want people to have a good life. I want people, if the way they attribute good things to God and they get self fulfillment out of it, and the belief that they're going to heaven is an incredibly wonderful thing if you believe that way. But I don't want it to be that now it's only a loyalty test, that it's only, what are they going to do about me, pretty much an atheist, but also being a pretty good guy? Where do I get my morals from? Well, you can't. Obviously I do. And you know what I mean? If you were to look at me, you'd say that guy's really a good Christian, because I do all the golden rule things and I do most of the commandments, probably all of the commandments now that I think of it, except for the things that are specific to bending the knee to God. I really have a problem with abasement. You know what I mean? To nothing, to a thing that I don't believe in at all.
God's a label that has a lot attached to it. It's a capital G. It's a lot attached to it. But the more I think about and learn about quantum physics, quantum mechanics, maybe we're just putting that word God and it's a being, and that makes it huge. But maybe there is something else, and we'll discover it through science, that is doing all this and controlling it. Maybe God is really the programmer that made our simulation. But it's that label and we're in an age where we're changing labels because it offends people. And I've said that. I'm like, okay, stop saying Jesus and God because that offends me. Oh, that's ridiculous. You can't choose some and not others and say, this is what I want. Screw anything you don't agree with. But that's how things are.
Most things all my life I've heard, no, I'm not. I'm a religious person, but I don't know that I'm an organized religious person, because so much bad comes from that. And that's what I see often is there are so many fake Christians, or so many people that use religion as a bludgeon, not as a, wow, how about help the poor? How about feed the hungry? How about all the things that really are documented in the Bible, as compared to other things that we seem to embrace that aren't anywhere mentioned. And yet it's become the watchword for family values or whatever. They come up with these wonderful memes a long time, those phrases that are loaded with all the import that they can give them, even though they don't match exactly what they're talking about, picking and choosing of what matters in the Bible. Every time we laugh about this, there's a great, was it West Wing, I think, where the guy kind of says, hey, I'm the religious candidate, and so you really should follow the Bible. So which part of the Bible are you talking about? The part where I sold my daughter into slavery, or that I killed a child, or that and there's so many things. It's not only the good, it's wow, I couldn't help but notice that you have a tattoo. And even if your tattoo says love, it says tattoos are an abomination unto the Lord, and that you're going to go to hell for that. It's weird how people really are picky and choosy. And this is that whole hypocrisy thing that matters a lot to me, to be consistent. That if you really were to look at how I think and what I believe, you'll be able to see that there are principles that I live by, and I apply them in as many ways as I possibly can, not just, today I felt like this, tomorrow I might feel otherwise. That doesn't sound stable. It doesn't sound committed. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like you really believe and act in a way that other people would know how you think and feel if you're just blowing with the wind. And yet that doesn't seem to bother other people that much.
But they don't understand that's exactly what they do. And faith and belief is not the same as religion. Those are separate, and people don't get that. And my ex-wife was cheating on me, proven through emails and phone calls, and lied about me to try and get me thrown in jail. Yet she was saved in the Mormon religion. And so they believed her and supported her. Like she said, I can't afford rent, I can't afford food, and I can't afford to go back to court, but I have to fight him because he's bad. They gave her money for all of that for 4 years to keep fighting me to go back to court over and over. That's religion.
Yeah. That honestly, that get out of jail free card that we've seen, where people from Watergate suddenly found religion in prison, and then we gave them a free path. But you totally undermined the country. You betrayed your most solemn oath as to what you were going to do to defend the United States against enemies, both foreign and domestic, all of those kinds of things. Oliver North getting a free pass, all the other things that we've seen for, you can't just claim you're a religious guy and then whatever you do is in line with God, because that's like Son of Sam territory.
We're used to evangelists
in your head telling you what to do. That's not a God. That's your craziness, and you're going to grab God, I don't know, a line out of the quicksand that you put yourself into.
We're used to evangelists saying that, doing that. Send me all your money so I can buy this new house that God said I should have.
We're in that. We're still in it ever since the moral majority. And here it is 40 years later. It's such an amazing force in our world. And yet, what can you do except still speak out and still say, well, you're not just a bad Christian. You're like no Christian at all. You're a fucking liar. You're one of the Philistines that Jesus would have driven you from the temple. Jesus would have whipped you. You know what I mean? It's that get out of jail free card, that thing of embracing the term Christian and having it be that no matter what harmful thoughts I have, somehow they're from God. They're obviously not. And I wish that the people that I know are good Christians that really do live a life that sure looks like they're trying to support God, be more like Jesus, feed the starving, clothe the poor, all that kind of stuff. I wish that they would speak up and say, please don't listen to those bad guys because they are taking this wonderful thing. And it really is wonderful when it works, when it makes people's lives better, and they're distorting it, twisting it, corrupting it so that, I don't know, people like me, when I hear someone's a lot religious, I think nowadays the default is they're bad, they're not good, that they're using that as a way of electing bad people or passing bad laws or whatever else it might be, that the most important issue in the world might be stopping global warming, not stopping naughty language in schools, not stopping mentions of
books that you feel kids shouldn't read, even if I feel it's okay
Right.
for my kids to read it or for me to choose to read it.
The adamance, the certainty that they have, it's flaw in their personality. It is not like God give me strength. No, he's trying to tell you maybe you should step back and not be so certain, because certainty is not for you. It's for a divine being, omniscient and omnipotent. Oh,
So
there's a nice happy Thanksgiving.
almost Thanksgiving.
It's interesting to have, there's so much also nowadays about the people that want to control the story and rewrite history and so forth. And unfortunately, Thanksgiving is one of those things. We've made it into little school pageants that say, hey, the Indians and us got together, and really the Indians saved us. We didn't know how to plant crops in the New World. We didn't know how to hunt. Our colony would have died out if not for the hospitality, the generosity and benediction of the Native Americans taking care of
Well,
us.
let's go wipe them out, all of them.
And yes, that was the thanks we gave them. I don't want to spoil Thanksgiving. I don't want it to be that it's only an excuse for a history lesson, but to also blind people to the fact that it really was miraculous, nearly miraculous act of generosity on the part of people that could have said, these guys are invaders. All we have to do is just let them die. They don't know what they're doing. And instead, oh no, godless heathens, they have cultural traditions of offering hospitality.
Oh.
You don't turn people away. It's only if they've discovered that you've done a bad thing, then there's punishment that goes with that. But otherwise, if you've survived the rigors of crossing an ocean or crossing a plain to get to our encampment, of course we will feed you and give you a place to sleep. It's how humanity survives against nature that was much more hostile back then.
The people that were here embraced what we consider good Christians nowadays, much more so than the people that came for religious freedom. We see a problem here.
There's a lot to be said about the United States was like a self-chosen penal colony. Australia was made up of all the people they sent there, whereas the United States were, a lot of the groups were people that they couldn't abide by whatever the standards were in England and Spain and Portugal and France or wherever else we had colonization from, because they were on the outs. They weren't accepting of the king is a divine leader, or that the puritanical, and that's not the right term because we had that, but whatever they did to escape, it's because they were like the outcasts. They weren't the best and brightest coming over from Europe. They were the ones that couldn't seem to find a home because they were already fanatic. So it is no wonder that we might have had some fanatic strain continue, if that's at all a genetically inherited trait or a culturally inherited trait. Once you have the idea that we're crossing not because we can't live anywhere here in Europe, but because we're the chosen people, because we want religious freedom. It's interesting I really shout out to Heather Cox Richardson. I think I've mentioned her before. She's a great columnist on Stack that is very much a historian, and she's really good at giving the historic perspective of what the United States has been through, how a lot of what we're seeing, of course, history repeats, or at least rhymes, and that this is not the first time we're seeing this kind of stuff, that we've had arch religious periods before with Father Coughlin, or that we've had big businessmen deciding that because you're a good businessman, you're wise on everything. And so you should run the entire country. What? Because you built railroads, you should be able to make decisions on every fucking topic under.
Well, it's not even you're a good businessman. You're a good salesman because you've convinced me you're a good businessman, no matter how bad you really are.
And then when you look into their lives, it's for a good businessman, you sure have a lot of mistresses. You sure have a lot of people that you're paying
So-
slave wages as if they are indentured servants. And the more that comes out like that, I don't know why we haven't learned that lesson of make sure that if they are successful, they're successful at what they are successful at, but not that having a lot of money means that somehow they gained it through wisdom. They gained it through compassion and serving humanity. There's all kinds of people that got very rich by doing nothing to serve humanity. They did it by parasiting off. You know what I mean?
How much more money do you think they threw at Melania so she wouldn't divorce Trump until after his presidency? How much?
Or it could be that's the orders from her Russian handlers that say, hey, as long as you have sway over him and we need a woman on the inside, you can't be better than sharing the bed with the president.
I don't think they share a bed. They would.
Well, you're exactly right. They don't, from what I understand.
She's moving to a different state to be closer to her son.
And in New York, what am I saying? Washington, and not in Mar-a-Lago, but so
She doesn't want to be first lady, essentially. She's trying to distance herself, but I think they're telling her you can go so far and nothing else. That's got to be a compromise. You can't tell me that she just said, I'm going here. I'm first lady, but I'm going here. I know somebody went, you're not doing it, and I'm sure there was some backdoor compromise going on there.
So it's worth, I mentioned this a little bit. Hey, audience, we often have a little prep texting, messaging back and forth as to what are we going to talk about. This isn't just random. We actually do have some things of what's big this week. And one of the things I thought was and I just mentioned it, you should be able to tell the principles that someone's operating out of by how they apply their time, their attention, their will. And what do you think are the principles that Trump is operating out of based on his current cabinet picks? They seem insane. They seem the worst people, almost to a man and a woman, that he could pick for these various different positions. It sure seems like demolition and destruction and the undoing of America compared to who do you put in charge of education? An educator. Who do you put in charge of transportation? Someone that they each know the field that they should specialize in. And instead, you've got terrible, the whole rest of the world agrees they're terrible. And yet, how far is he trying to do it? That it's just my will? Because he really wants what he can get away with. He wants to see how far he can push Congress. That each of these things is a test for Congress to say, are we going to stand up? Are we really going to put the worst criminal in the attorney general spot? Are we going to put the worst anti-medicine person into this in charge of health?
I don't think it's any of that. I don't think it's even that deep, that thought out. I think it's clearly, hey, if you give me a lot of money for my campaign, support me and speak out, I'll give you a position. That's like, it seems stupid, but I would lay money down on that one.
Yeah. If it's not money, it's at least the unending support. Really are one of the things that the dark triad people have is they value loyalty, because that means that you still haven't seen through their ruse, that you really actively get others to accept all the craziness that you're doing. And that is a very strong link, that these are the people that no matter what has been going on, they're the ones that went on Meet the Press and said, no, he's not. There is that. They really have been loyal, but in a way, if you're loyal to, you're loyal to Napoleon until he destroys the world. You're loyal to Hitler. You're loyal to Satan. You're loyal to that. Loyalty is not the biggest virtue of them all. And some people act as if it is. But if you're a thinking human being, when you see your friend who's been fine up until the point start to substance abuse or hurt his wife and children or actively commit crimes, it might be that you can't bring yourself to call the police on him, but you sure don't buy into all the evil stuff that they're doing. You talk to them and say, hey, maybe you should cut back amphetamines and stuff like that. And yet there's all kinds of moms that won't narc on their sons, no matter that their son is on a violent rampage, because he's my boy. And whatever that thing is that lets you rejoin humanity and say, you have to stop bad things from happening to other people. It's part of your obligation to the rest of the tribe.
But
what I mean?
this is all loyalty for power. That's as simple as that. Again, it's overthinking from our part. That list, my mother does it a lot, and I try and get her to realize. I'm like, Nanny, you're overthinking this, but it doesn't make sense. You're right, it doesn't. You would think that normal people that care about others, that want to be a good person, but that's not what we're dealing with. You're dealing with narcissism. I've dealt with that with my ex, and they don't think that way. And you can't convince them otherwise, because as far as they're concerned, they really are doing it for this is what's best and blah, blah, blah. So this is all loyalty for power, and everybody else is going to get screwed. But that's because we know what's best.
One of the things that really always hurts me about these situations is it's not only bad that's being done and what we're doing to combat it, because in the last administration, he didn't have any cabinet member except maybe DeVos last the entire administration. He had a number of people that they were found, they were scandalized, they were found out to be bad in various different ways and were ousted, or that they left before the worst of the truth could come out, or whatever else it might be. And I like that justice is occasionally done, but there's an incredible opportunity cost. We just had a good administration that moved us forward in so many ways about the economy and the ecology and the education and the energy policy and all the E's. And now we're going to just take 4 years off from doing any of that.
Or reverse it and move it back.
Or even reverse it. Exactly. So how much more can the planet survive us doing nothing, though we've known it's a problem for 25 years about global warming? And how much can we affect our children getting educated and being able to make a sound decision as to who's the right person to vote for, what's the good policy to support, all those things. We're wasting so much possibility of, if we did, all those small businesses that started up and that were increasingly buoying up our economy and making the American dream happen again, we're just going to snuff that out. We're just going to go back to it.
No, we're not. No, we're not. Because now it's going to be that top 10 richest people. It's benefiting them. It's going to help them. So it's all good.
And all the money, did it really trickle down? No. Now we've got 40 years.
It hasn't for 40 years.
A lie from the start that there's no such thing as supply side economics that works, that it's been a catchphrase, like I'm a Christian, that they get to talk about capitalism while not doing it. So this is, because we didn't have a thing last week to talk about the election result. It's all the incredible sadness and outrage over that, whatever the phrase is about getting people to vote against their self-interest. It's that to the nth now. We've seen what he did, and we had a sterling example of, if you do better, how it benefits everyone. And instead we decided on lies and, oh no, the Haitians are here. Like, you can see the lies that were meant to be all the crazy wedge issues, transgender bathrooms. Again, really, people think that's so icky that they're willing to tank the country, tank the world, because the United States has such influence on it. My biggest, right now, Colleen and I are in 1500 days mode. Let's keep ourselves safe. Let's isolate ourselves. We really, of course, the country won't go to hell. We're never going to be Nazi Germany. We're never going to be that we go to war against other countries. We're not going to kill all the Jews. It's not going to get that crazy. But the status that we have in the world about being the place that has all the scientific breakthroughs that makes us all live longer. I don't know. What's my personal stake? I love my Mounjaro, and it's helped me lose weight. I really need to do that in order to survive longer. When my Mounjaro goes up tenfold in price, because we no longer have negotiations for prices, we no longer make sure that there's the list of all the ways in which things are going to get worse is not going to be worth, oh no, my gas price was too high. Oh no, I paid too much for eggs. And all the manipulation that went into that happening, it just breaks my heart that people are that dense, that they really vote on nothing. I don't think that it's half the country, because there's incredible apathy as well, which is its own problem. You know what I mean? The way he got in was not with 50% of the vote. There's no mandate, no matter how many times he declares it. All the things that are coming out now that all the votes are being counted, it really is that we're in trouble because we let the Reds take over once again, too many places, and come the midterm elections, We'll see how much that gets reversed again. But for now, we're gonna take 2 years and gut good things, and then what are we gonna do to recover and try to get back on track to being a really civilized country? The
You
world
are
must be sick over what has happened.
You are
So
definitely more hopeful than me. I'm much more cynical. I don't have as much faith in people. Too often, it's always proven wrong for the most part. Yeah, there's some great people. I know some
Right.
great people. I know, but unfortunately, it's the minority, way smaller minority. Most people in the majority are way too, they're so, oh my God, I've got to get home to watch the new NCIS. I can't be bothered with these other problems. That's too much to think about. They told me something easy. I like that. Like you said, apathy is a large part of it, and outright narcissist and self-interest and stupidity with self-interest. I think that's the best thing, but I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But I'm going to say I'm smart enough because I'm not smart enough to know I'm not smart enough.
We're gonna die of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Going on record, because it's just so true. What is Colleen and I's biggest shield? The fact that we're like old and white, that we're not any threat to anybody. We're not the dreaded immigrant, the dreaded gay person, the dreaded Jew, whatever it is that people have again maligned.
The dreaded cat ladies.
Honestly, the sickening prejudice that you see in this country, we can still go to all of our national parks and people will not suspect us of being bad. They'll be like, oh, look, the nice old people are going out for a walk. And as long as I don't open my mouth and say, how about if we stop that fracking right outside your national park? How long is this going to survive? I just need to bear with it and do what I can in all the, I don't know, not getting us dragged into jail ways. I don't think we're going to see disappearances. We're not going to see deportation. We just can't. The country's not going to allow for that. And yet, I don't want it to be that in all the other ways that things have gone wrong, there's pandemics coming, and I'm willing to get the vaccines all the time, but I hate thinking of, I can't go on my concerts, my comedy clubs, my cruises, my church, my movie theater, knowing that there are people that are actively not taking care of themselves, and they're sending their kids to school without vaccination, and we've made the world a terribly dangerous place for no good reason. No good reason except ignorance and stubbornness.
And to make rich people richer. I mean, that's the reason.
There is some of that, but I hope there's only so many places that you can like, hey, everything is dying on the coast. Don't worry, I got a nice castle in the Midland that is going to be safe. And yet maybe they'll get a snowstorm and an avalanche. Maybe they'll get a flood from a river instead. Whatever it is that they can't be perfectly safe. Maybe it is that after you've done something that really hurts people, you can't go out to eat at a nice restaurant anymore because there will be people that will come to your table like they went to McConnell's and give them a piece of their mind. And it shouldn't be that they can do this deviltry and then go on living as if the world is a nice place built just for them.
But again, they don't view it as devilry. That's part of this issue is they really will look you in the face and say, no, I'm doing this because it's the best thing and it will save the world. I bring up my ex because that's my most intimate dealing with this. I said many times with her, you could watch her do something and then bring it back up and she will swear up and down you're lying and she didn't do it. And not because she's lying, she would completely believe it. Her brain rewrites what happened. It rewrites history and she makes choices that are good for her and hurts other people, but will flat out be able to tell you, no, this is what's best. This is the best thing in the world. I'm doing it because I care so much, blah, 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 as it's hurting me, the kids, other family members, etc. She would pass a lie detector test. And I guarantee that's what most of these cronies would do.
It's funny. We hardly ever talk about this because our life has moved on, but I really understand that too. She must not be named, and I would have a conversation, and then I would overhear her talking to her mom, recounting what we had talked about, and it was so far divorced from reality that I was like, wow, I'm pretty sure we were both there. I'm pretty sure that I could, because I am this almost eidetic memory type guy, recite the conversation. And none of what you're saying and a lot of what we did say, it's all being left out to for ego preservation, to mom, I'm still a good girl, even though she really had done some terrible things.
But again,
And
it's not even that. It's narcissistic mental illness. It is a disease. It's an illness. Yes, they're doing it for malicious and self-serving purposes, but it's some rewiring, some chemical imbalance that's doing it. Unfortunately, I don't want to dismiss it. And yes, everything there's doing, you want to just beat them with a 2x4 because of it. But
right.
I've had to come to accept that because it just,
And again, I very much share that. I took the biggest promise of my life, straight out of Kramer versus Kramer, and I had to betray it because it was a matter of survival.
right.
I saw increasingly in what danger I was for how she could say those things, really believing them, and convince, you name it, the family, the policeman, the judge, that things had happened that didn't happen or whatever else it might be. I saw that she did not care about my things, and I didn't want what I'm going to come one day and my whole
Like
comic book
burning on the
collection
lawn.
is going to be burnt down. It was signs of this really is not only a bad situation, but it's not going to get better. And that big realization of it really has gone so far to get to that point of confidence that no matter how much you think you can love and explain and get to, we can fix this. When you really have like that moment of clarity of like, I've gone as far as I can, I cannot make any headway against this. That's when I knew that it was time for us to part. And happily, luckily, we parted well instead of it being then thermonuclear war and stuff
That's
like
good.
that. Her best behavior was last 6 months of, let's just part. Let's not claw at each other on the way out. Let's just get on, start our lives again after this. And I thank her very much for that because it could have been terrible. And instead it really ended sadly, and it only cost me 5 years. And I'm glad that it wasn't, we had kids and then I have to see
Yeah.
them forever because of that link. I was very lucky in that regard. Though part of why that happened was because I saw early on some things that made me think she would not be a good mom. What a
Well,
terrible thing
you're
to say about
you're a
someone who's
smarter
right
man
out
than
to
me.
be a parent. You know what I mean? But just that, when you're really worried about that and that thing that you'd be the most concerned with and invested in for the rest of your life, and you think you're bringing someone into that situation of danger, I couldn't do it. I just
Yep.
couldn't. That
Well,
and
I came this close to getting thrown in jail for lies, but luckily she isn't as smart as she claims she is. She told people, yeah, that she was tested above Einstein's IQ and that I felt threatened by that because she was just so much smarter than me. And yet her lies, I was able to come up with so many arguments and poke holes in it that the judge didn't even listen to it after that. She got mad and kept trying to argue. And he's, no, there's nothing you can say that's going to make me believe you at this point. So that was,
yeah, some part of what helped me so much was that if you really don't have it together, it isn't just there's a whole bunch of private devil, public angel that was going on, but there were some situations where the mask slipped and my friends or my family saw how terrible she could be. And then my stories were more believable because they had seen it for themselves. You know, going in and no matter how much I'm complaining, I am a big guy. And so in any situation, you would think that I would be the threatener, the one that throws my weight around. And when I talked about, she's thrown things at me and she struck me and they're like, come on, she wouldn't do that. What can I do but tell the truth? And when they saw that kind of stuff happen, and it's not just the doing of it, it's when you hear that tone of voice that it really is that really nasty, really disrespectful, really get in your digs however you can, because that's what you're about. There was a lot then of proof out in the world that it wasn't only my saying these things and feeling painted into a corner. She had created the way out by not being able to control herself. You know what I mean? By not being able to contain all that terrible stuff. So
yeah, I had her
oh
family
boy,
saw it and believed it and knew it, but was too afraid to rock the boat and spend effort fighting against her. So they just let it go. And I was left with no support on that. So
even more isolated. Exactly. So,
yeah. Yeah.
Right. I know this hardly the turn we wanted to talk about today, but it really
But
is that it's funny. There's been all these things about what do we feel like? We're feeling like abused wives in the United States. People are getting away with fucking evil stuff, and yet you have to plan your escape. You can't just fight back when they
yeah,
have many more advantages, or when they just the biggest advantage they have is that they have no boundaries. They'll do any fucking thing. And when you find out that someone is willing to do that, well, how do I get into a fight to make it stop? I don't get in a fight to hurt someone, to kill someone. I just calm down. I'll hold you off of me. I won't be the aggressor. There's people that don't think that way at all.
no. They want to win, and
So,
they will do whatever.
yeah, they go wild. You know what I mean? And maybe they'll have regrets afterwards, but maybe not either. He made me do it. That kind of, oh my God. Oh my God.
All right. So other
You mentioned
topics.
David Baldacci as an author
Yes.
mentioned that you really like. What do you think?
Okay. So he's not my favorite author. He's my mother's favorite author. She likes his thrillers. She likes his stuff. I'm not actually a huge thriller reader. There's only a few authors I enjoy reading thrillers from. They just don't, I don't pick them up as much and enjoy them. But she loves Baldacci, and he came around. He's got a new book out. He was coming around doing the author tour, and he was down at the Canton Palace Theater through the Stark Library. So I grabbed tickets.
To fill a theater with fans is a pretty big, hey, this author's got it going on. Okay.
It
Yeah.
was packed, including the balcony. It was packed.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah. So I got her VIP tickets to go to a special reception early and get pictures with him and meet him, get a signed book. She got to sit right down near the front row, though this made no sense. He was on this side of the stage. She got to sit in the front row over here. I'm like, it would have been better.
PE. Exactly.
Yeah, put her in the second row over here. That's better than the first row over here. But she enjoyed it. He had a great talk. He had some funny stories, author funny stories. Like he's coming out of an airport middle of the night, and there's a guy sitting there reading his book, and he goes, "Hey, is that a good book?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's a page turner. I can't put it down." He goes, "Oh, I'm glad you enjoy it. Would you like me to sign it?" "No, why do I want you to sign my book?" And he goes, "Because I wrote it." "No, you didn't write it." And he takes the book and holds up the jacket, and the guy goes, "Oh." Now, the other one that cracked me up was he got a 1-star review on a book. And the lady said, I can't support this book. I'm so disappointed in it because I figured it out in the last 3 pages.
That's the whole point of it.
So you read 187 pages enthralled with the story. But when I was wrapping it up, you suddenly figured it out, and that makes the whole book suck. And I remember Bill saying once, he writes military sci-fi. All his books have big spaceships above planets shooting at each other with things blowing up. And a lady gave him a 1 star and said, "There's not enough romance in this." What is big romance about military sci-fi?
Soldiers blowing off steam by going to the intergalactic whorehouse? Is
I
that
guess. I mean, that'd be
No, I
something
mean-
Douglas Adams would write more.
right? That's this is the world of expectations not fulfilled. It's like, why did you even think that in the first
Right.
place? You know, bodies ripping it on the cover of the military.
Exactly. The robots. So she got to meet him. As I said, yep, David Baldacci breathed on her. So it's an early Christmas present. I told her the thing is, the last couple of years, presents for her have not gone a little wonky at times. They've stressed me out. They've gone weird. And I said, I am not stressing myself out. She goes to Cracker Barrel to meet up with friends from work. They do that a couple times a month. So I was going to get her a whole bunch of gift cards for Cracker Barrel. And I said, easy.
Does it for free.
Yeah, you know, we don't need more stuff in the house. She's 75. She doesn't want more stuff. So I was going to do that. And then I noticed mowing the lawn, the planter. Oh, wait, hold on. Sure, she's not out listening to me. But I noticed the planter she has out front with flowers and my father's memory rock. It's falling apart. It's wood. And so I said, okay. And I got her a big planter to put out there. And then this came up and I got her this. And I'm like, okay, I just got triple the amount of stuff for Nanny for Christmas that I intended.
Sometimes it's feast or famine like that. There's been some years I regularly get Colleen some books and some music and some clothing and some jewelry and whatever else I think are the things that she really likes and that we both enjoy. And then once in a while, no matter how hard I look, there's not a new Laura Ingalls Wilder book out there, not even a biography.
She needs to write a few more.
Yeah, from beyond the grave. But
Well, just ask
the
AI to imitate her
I
voice.
I just wasn't finding, and what's funny sometimes is that inspires you to go, let's just see if she might like this, instead of getting things that are in well-formed likes, but sometimes that's a rut too. You don't want to only be in ruts. I've had good success with where, like, when they open the package and they're like, "Oh, this is so nice," and you had no idea actually if they would like it. You know what I mean? So yes, my guess is good.
So I taught my kids to think about something for people. Don't just wait till the last minute, rush out and buy a gift package of cookies. Who
Yeah.
cares? So my son always tries to get something for me unique. And the one year he got me a little plastic toy gun for an action figure. And that's what he gave me. And people were like, I think he only paid like 16, $20 for it at work. But people were like, why'd you just get him that? And oh, trust me, he'll love it. What it was, the missing gun for the very first Star Wars figure I ever got. So he replaced
Oh,
the gun for that figure for me.
that's cool. I did that once for a friend where they were missing a very particular Tales to Astonish, like where the Hulk and the Silver Surfer are in it or something like that. And they had looked for it forever. And I found them a copy and they were like, "I- I've been looking, I knew they had been looking for this forever." So once
Right.
in a while, you really strike gold like that, especially when did you get your first Star Wars figure?
Oh,
That-
it was like I was at 10 years old. Yeah, it was December of 1980 for The Empire Strikes Back. It's Han Solo in his Hoth gear.
Yes. So it's like a 45-year itch. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's really cool. I But Cully and I talk about everything under the sun, and once in a while, there'll be that little she'll mention something, and then I'll be able to fulfill it in a way that was like, she never thought that she would get this particular I don't know what I wish I had a good story. I have done fun things with, I think we talked about this before, birthdays where, hey, it was gonna be her 50th birthday, find a whole bunch of things related to 50. You know what I mean? So it's atomic number 50, and it's 50 stars on the flag, and that whole thing. When it was our 17th anniversary, I got her a piece of amber with a little prehistoric cicada in it, a locust in it, because it was 17-year locust, you know what I mean? That kind of
Yeah.
thing. She's almost very tickled when I find that little excuse theme that actually turns out to be very inspiring for finding cool things. A flower that we hadn't tried in our bread making before because it got mentioned in a book that it's an old pioneer flower. So I can go look at that. And it really sometimes turns out just like that.
Right.
Whenever we are ribs and kraut or kraut and pork chops that we like, I almost always make it with apples and onions nowadays because that was one of Almanzo's favorite meals in the Little House books was that he loved the apples and onions. And it shows you listen. It's not only the thing, it's that you really listen to your loved one and then she's tickled by that. That's a good thing. Hey, anybody, formula for a good marriage, have a conversation and listen.
Just take a moment and think about things. Pay attention throughout the year. It's
That's
not
right.
hard once you get in the habit of always in the back. We think differently. I found this out, but I'm like, all you got to do is keep that little program looping and running in the back of your brain. So whenever it triggers, as you see or hear something, it goes ping and you file it away and there you go. And people look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, what? Not everybody has 50 different things running in the back of their mind.
Particular files.
No, we don't. I'm
just-
like, oh, I thought everybody did.
it's not something that she talked about in October. It's something she talked about in February. And
Hey,
yet,
Or we were on a vacation in 2000 and she mentioned it. And now I found it 25 years later. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. We've had such success. Colleen had gotten me things like just, in fact, the family has done it occasionally. Like the brothers will find my older brother, there was a Mr. Robot, like early 60s, where you actually built it out of plastics and gears and a little battery pack, and then it would walk along stably. And my younger brother found one of those on an obscure corner of eBay or something like that. And it fit Armin so perfectly. Bruce had found this thing for Armin where he loves putting things together. He loves, that's not quite right. And then he like adjusts it so that it's even a smoother motion. He's really brilliant in that way of understanding how mechanical things work and how to fix things in case they're broken and all that kind of stuff. So that was a really cool, it's not just nostalgia. It's that you understand your brother and that he will find this primitive, cantankerous thing fascinating, not a hassle. You know what I mean? He's going to get it working perfectly.
Gina did that once. We were at a family reunion or something, or sitting around for whatever family thing. And her brother Mark was sitting there. We're all just chatting. He goes, oh, I remember the Steve Austin dolls. I always wanted one. My neighbor had one. It's like, yeah, you remember those, blah, blah. And then she later went to Colin and said, hey, if you get one of those at the store, let me know. And he goes, oh, we got one now. So she got it for her brother. And we went to her father's birthday. And she said, Mark, I got something for you. He goes, not my birthday. She's like, I know, but I got to give this to you. And he opened it and he cried. He's, oh my God,
that's wonderful. And Colleen and I often get each other things where, after you finish it, you're going to hand it off because they want to read it too. And so that's a good thing back and forth, because then you get things that you both will enjoy. But once in a while, when they get you something in particular, that if I get her fancy tomatoes, she know that's a pure gift, because no matter how fancy they are, I'm not eating raw tomatoes. And it's once in a while, it's really cool to get a book that's not at all to her taste, but she knows that I like it for some reason. Maybe that's all of comic books. She's nowhere near the comic book fan that I am. So whenever she gets me something like that, it's thank you for this really selfless, not our usual. We'll both read the latest Bill Maher book, the latest David Sedaris book, whatever else, but that kind of pure gift.
right.
And I have been able to find often things where she's not even aware that there's a new Vonnegut like collection of letters that he wrote to his sister or something like that, but it really contains his wit. He was a very witty, wise man besides his books. And then, like, she thought, as you said, he's not writing anymore. There's no more Vonnegut coming out.
Right.
And one appears. And so a couple times I've had really good luck with finding kind of thing.
Sometimes you get some weird things, like Colin really likes Shakespeare, and they have the 3 main Star Wars movies written like Shakespeare would have written them in books. And I have not gotten it yet because I haven't needed something, but he knows about it. So it's not oh my God, I didn't even know about this. So he knows about it. He's not gotten it for himself, but it's something I've kept in my back pocket. But just somebody to think that up, like if somebody would write NCIS like Laura Ingalls would, or some weird thing like that,
right. They did have that series of books that was like Sense and Sensibility and Sea Serpent.
Zombies.
Exactly. And zombies. Exactly. So I think it was like half a dozen of them. I don't know that I have them all, because I got the first few and they were very witty, but then I didn't actively keep up with that. And I should go see which ones I've missed. And that's once in a while. And maybe it's like now when we're getting into the winter, the doldrum, I want to stay inside. I want to read more books. And I will go and look at, I think I mentioned it again, shout out, everybody, you should be reading Charles Stross, because he really is a great author and he has great ideas and he has great vocabulary. When you've got 300,000 words in you and he uses a word you don't know, that's pretty freaking cool, because it doesn't happen that often for me. So having said that, I found out that I had fallen behind on like the Laundry Files books. And hey, that might be a kind of an innocuous title, but they're really good. They're a combination of like spy novels and Cthulhu mythos. You know what I mean? And so I found out that I got 4 or 5 of them that I had missed in the course of just not paying attention to it for 5 years. If you're a prolific author, you can fall behind quickly. So I did that. I got a whole bunch of Simon R. Green's series of his that I hadn't read. And I think I've talked about this before, but it has been a joy working my way through them with like one from him and one from him and one from him and alternating. So it wasn't just that I binged through them, because sometimes authors have a style, and Terry Pratchett is the guy that I always speak about this, that if you read too many of them in a row, his sense of humor is beautiful, but it keeps pushing that humor button in your brain that they aren't as effective because they're not as surprising or whatever. So
Zamp series does that to me.
There you go. Exactly. So a little round robin of things that I enjoy. And that gets me to, so there we were. We're out in Colorado for a wedding, and we are staying in Golden because that's where it's going to be. But then we also wanted to go to Boulder because that's where Tim, Colleen's son, is buried. And we wanted to make sure that we had a chance to visit with him. So we're wandering around Golden, and like I had read my books. I even brought like even the emergency books that I had bought because we got snowed in. I finished them. So we're in a little bookstore there. And you know how it is. You browse the bookshelves and you're looking for what might strike your fancy. And I found a book by Christopher Buehlman called The Black Tongue Thief. And one of those, you read the front and read the back. Lots of people who I respect and like his work. The description of the thing is, that's going to be cool. And then it was better than I expected. So
Nice.
Isn't that one of the most wonderful things where you buy music like the first Marillion album, where I had no idea what to make of it except, hey, 3 songs per side. So they're longer. And they got the keyboards are in the band and all kinds of, I didn't know anything about it except it turned out to be a great find. This book is like that. So everybody, if you're looking for the next great sword and sorcery, magic, high fantasy, great world building, great culture, clash of cultures, real like magic, a magic system that's really well developed, but really mysterious. And how it's described is both thrilling and chilling. You got to get this Christopher Buehlman book called The Black Tongue Thief. Highest recommendation. I love when you find once in a while something and once in a while it's, how does he have 5 books down? I've not read any of them. How did I totally not have him on my radar? This guy, I think he just came out with a sequel called The Daughter's War that is a prequel, actually. And so I'm going to be picking that up now based on having so much enjoyed this. It's thank you for existing. You get to take the place of George R. Martin, who just won't finish that series.
Patrick
The
Roth
Song of
was,
Ice and Fire. Besides the Baldacci for the Mom, anything you've read lately that you would recommend?
lately I've actually been going back and rereading some comics series and comfort casual, but there's a movie out that I'm excited to go see, The Red One, the Christmas movie.
I
I
just
don't know.
saw a preview for it recently. Exactly. Okay.
I'm excited because it looks fun. It's got The Rock. It's got J.J. Simmons in it. So I'm like, oh, good. Maybe this will be a good, fun movie. Colin goes, it's got Yetis. Let's go see the Yetis.
Exactly. Oh, to you, and mention this to Colin. I think last month I put in my first comic book order in
Right.
20 years. And so now I'm only 2 weeks away from them showing up on my doorstep.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm so excited about, and Colin had mentioned this, the absolutes and the ultimates. Ultimate is the Marvel and absolute is the DC, where they're like restarting the series, and not in a way that just throwing out what has come before, but they're trying to like do the retellings that they
Totally separate from everything else.
exactly in a whole different universe. And they sure look, from the blurbs and the covers, really good. All kinds of authors and artists that I don't know enough about. So I'm like, okay, I did anything that Neil Gaiman is doing, anything that David Finch. I have certain people that, because they were doing something and sometimes not for the big two, I went ahead and bought things even from other publishers. But I so much concentrated on Marvel and DC because just by buying all of what they're putting out, hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
And I have to really think of, am I going to start this up again? I miss it terribly. Even getting graphic novels from the library is not the same as month by month, big shared world things, the crossovers, and especially the monthly dose that lets you think about it and anticipate what's coming up next.
Right.
It's a wonderful way to live a life, to have that injection every week of all these good comic book stuff. And so I'm looking forward to seeing, maybe in a very interesting way. I took 20 years off. What happened? You know what I mean?
A lot.
They've done that before, where they jump forward in history. It's, oh, they had kids and I don't know these kids. I'm really looking forward.
Once you get it and start reading some of them, I mentioned to Colin, hey, maybe sometime you could get on a call. So maybe we could find a different day of the week he's off or an evening and get him on and talk about comics and stuff. He found out he has like a small fan club that people follow his posts and his videos and stuff for recommendations and things like that. So he was like a little humble brag of it. It's like a little astonished also. It's, I have a fan club.
I actually, it's funny. I really was thinking making a part of this, or maybe even, oh my God, starting a blog or some other thing where, because I'm doing this, I'm restarting after 20 years. I think it's going to be a very cool thing to be able to say, I have a lot of comic book history in me. And how does that compare to what's now being created? Does it work? Does it tie together? Or are there things they decided to throw that out because he was never a really good character anyway? And I want to share those experiences in a way that maybe people would say, this guy knows what he's talking about. Maybe I should read what he recommends, in the way that Colin has found a fan club. That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's up to him. That's great.
We'll have to get him on and talk comics. So I got to get rolling because I got 3 minutes for a meeting.
Exactly. I'm glad we were connected. Happy Thanksgiving. I guess we'll be doing this again next Tuesday. So before we thank you, we can discuss gravy. We can discuss giblets.
All right, man.
Okay.
Have a great week.
Take care, Stephen. Okay.
You have been listening to the Relentless Geekery podcast. Come back next week and join Alan and Stephen's conversation on geek topics of the week.